Hi, this is Mrs. Williams, and this is some help for 7.08. So the first question says, which is the result when you multiply 6 plus 7i times the quantity 5 plus 9i? So actually really quickly, let me get my pen. There we go. What you want to do there is FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. Or I just like to think of it as a face. You have your two eyebrows, the nose, and the mouth. And then you have your ears there. But it's just the FOIL acronym. So we're going to go ahead and multiply 6 times 5, and that's going to give us 30. And then 7i plus 9i. With the i's, when you do I times I, you get I squared. I squared is always -1. So you're going to get 63, and I'll write that out. Hang on, my PowerPoint, there we go. PowerPoint wasn't responding for some reason there. 63, and again, I times I is going to give you I squared, but we're going to replace this with a -1 in a minute. Then when you do positive 7i times a positive 5, you get positive 35i. And then 6 times 9i, you just multiply the 6 and the 9 together. And then the I just gets tagged onto the end there. Sorry, my eyes kind of look funny. This is an I. Okay, so then we're going to simplify and combine like terms. 30 is going to stay by itself. The 63 is going to be 63 times -1. Anytime you have I squared, it's always going to be -1, because I is really the square root of -1. When you multiply the square root of -1 times the square root of -1, one rule when you're working with radicals is that you can put both of those numbers underneath the same radical sign, and then when you have a pair of numbers, because there's really like a 2 out here, so you're looking for 2 of a kind, and that 2 of a kind comes out of the radical, so you aren't left with any radical sign, just the -1. So that's why that happens. But if you can remember that, it makes that process easier. You don't have to think through that each time. And then here, just think of this as 35x plus 54x, and ask yourself, what would you do? And what you would do is just add the 35 and the 54, and that would give you 89. And you just put the x at the end, so the I works the same way. You just stick the I on at the end like that. Now, right here, we have a little bit more simplifying we can do. This is actually going to turn into minus 63, or you can think of it as plus a -63. And then you're going to be able to combine the 30 minus 63. Those are like terms now, and you're going to get -33 from that. So the final answer would be -33 plus 89i. And that is as far as you can go. That you don't. The 33 and the 89i are not like terms. You can't put them together. You're done. Okay, next question says, what is the conjugate of the complex number 9 plus 5i? Conjugates are really easy as long as you remember what to do. All you have to do is change the sign in the middle, and you have the conjugate. So the 9 and the 5i stay the same. All you do is switch that plus to a minus. If it were the opposite, you would do, the opposite thing. So let's say you had 10 minus 5i. The conjugate of that would be 10 plus 5i. So it's really easy, to remember. You just have to know the rule. All you do is change the sign to the opposite. Everything else stays the same. Okay, last question says, which is equal to 2 plus 3i over 6 minus 2i? Well, the problem with the problem is that you have an I in the denominator. And the reason that that's bad is because, remember, I is really the square root of -1, and one rule in math is that you cannot have square roots or radical signs in the denominator. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by the conjugate that we just talked about, and that's going to help us get rid of I in the denominator. And then we'll actually be able to match it up over here. So the conjugate of 6 minus 2i would be 6 plus 2i. And whatever you do in the denominator, you also need to do that in the numerator. So we're also going to multiply 6 plus 2i in the numerator, And what you're really doing there is you're not changing this. This is really 1. It doesn't look like it at all, but you have something over itself, and that always reduces down to 1. So you're not changing the value of the fraction. So now we have to do that FOIL thing, but we have to do it twice. We have to do it to the numerator and to the denominator. So it's kind of a pain, but that's what we have to do. And I'm going to color code it. So I'm going to do 2 times 6. That's going to give me 12. Positive 3i times a positive 2i. If you think through it, remember the I times I, which is the I squared. So let's write it up here. You're going to get 6i squared. But remember, the I squared is really negative 1, right? So if you take 6 and multiply it by negative 1, you get minus 6. So this is actually minus 6. And then positive 3i times 6 is positive 18i. And then the last combo would give us plus 4i. And then we can actually combine these two together. They're like terms. They both have an I. And then we can also do 12 minus 6, those to go together. So that, we'll just simplify it real quick, and then we'll do the denominator. So that would give us 6 plus 22i. Okay. Now for the denominator. Let's change color again. Okay, I'm going to do 6 times 6. So that would give me 36. Here, I'm going to get, I have negative 2 times positive 2. That gives me negative 4i squared. And then we do, and it doesn't matter the order, you can do these combination, you do the pairs in any order. I just did the 2 eyebrows. I think of it as 2 eyebrows and then the nose. So we'd have negative 2 times positive 6. So minus 12i. And then 6 times 2i would give us a plus 12i. And if you notice the last two, the nose and the mouth, or the inner and the outer, will always be the same, and they'll always have the opposite sign. And that's the reason that we do the conjugate. That should always happen, because what's going to happen is that's going to cancel out, and then you aren't going to have any more i's. Now, I know you're thinking, well, I have an I there, but remember, we can keep simplifying this, and this is going to be 4 times negative 1, right? I squared is the same thing as negative 1, so this really becomes 36 plus 4, and that's going to turn into 40. So 40 is going to be our denominator, and we got rid of our I, or our square root, our radical symbol, which is good. That was our goal. So we're going to put 6 plus 22i over 40. Now, you're probably looking over here at the answers and saying, okay, it still doesn't match. Well, what you can do, if you have a single term in the denominator, is you can break this into two fractions, 6 over 40 and 22i over 40. And then what's going to happen is, because 6 and 40 are both even, and because 22 and 40 are both even, you can reduce those fractions a little bit. And that will make it match up with our choices. So 2 goes into 6 3 times, 2 goes into 40 20 times, so 3 over 20. So option D is definitely ruled out. And then 2 goes into 22 11 times, and 2 goes into 40 20 times. So if we watch our signs, it looks like option A is the right choice there. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have questions.